JPMorgan said like they are spending 2 billion annually on AI. Morgan Stanley said in parallel to this, 200,000 European banking jobs will disappear by 2030. And yet MIT saying 95% of organizations derive no measurable impact from AI. Is AI transformation real or it's just a hype? What's happening there?
AI is the game changer for every organization, irrespective of the size. The question is, are you ready to adopt or are you ready to watch others adopt? Every bank has this issue. They're flooded with thousands of vulnerabilities. All the defects that were done historically through human triage and human engagement now is done completely autonomously through AIOS platform.
Welcome to another episode of Wrap Up Podcast, guys. We continue discussing AI in banking, and today I'm joined by Charbel Safadi, CEO of Zafin, and Zafin is doing a lot in AI and banking. Recently, they launched AIOS. Today, we will discuss this new product as well as what's happening in banking and AI world and how it's going to affect everyday developments. Especially one of the burning questions is, are we going to keep our job or not? Charbel, I hope you will be able to answer this question. And
we're all going to keep our jobs.
This is good news. This is good news. And let me start straight with this question. Sure. Actually, JPMorgan said like they are spending 2 billion annually on AI. Morgan Stanley said in parallel to this, 200,000 European banking jobs will disappear by 2030. And yet MIT saying 95% of organizations derive no measurable impact from AI. So let me ask you, is AI transformation real or it's just a hype? What's happening there?
Yeah, I don't think it's hype. I think before we get into banking and before we get into any other conversation, I think what's important is you as a human being, as a consumer, as someone that is an individual in your daily life. The question I would ask is that individual using AI, right? And this is not about people in specific professions. This is not about banking. Are you using AI? Is your family members using AI? Are your children using AI? Are the school systems using AI? And I think we have to just recognize, there's a lot of headlines and there's a lot of points of views from many different organizations. And obviously I'll have a point of view and I'll have opinions, but I ground it in the most simplistic terms, what I experience around me, right? At least in my social setting, in my family setting. And what I've come to accept is AI is not a hype. AI is there. It exists. It's a capability. It's something that, every single one of us is exposed to on a daily basis, right? Whether you're using your iPhone for many different capabilities, whether your children are using Canva in a school trying to build material, whether you're in a Tesla, the notion of AI being hype, I think I'm hoping we're getting past the notion of that and understanding that it is a capability that exists and exists in all parts of our lives. And I think the fundamental question is how will it exist in the way we work, right? And I think that's, Sam, I think this is what, when you give me these stats, do I think jobs are going to be impacted by AI? I think jobs will change, okay? And I have many analogies that I'll use, but the analogy simplistically is if you think about robotics, and we've had robotics for many years, right? You think about car manufacturing lines, jobs changed. So you may not have been the person that was still welding and a robot was welding, but now the job is around the robotics itself, how to program that robot, how to manage the robot, how to maintain the robot, how to make the supply chain better, how to reimagine the way we work, I think is where we're going to. And AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Yeah. AI is not hype per se, but it's how we're going to adopt it, which industries will adopt it, the way they will adopt it, and the way they will reinvent the way they work. I think that's fundamentally the question that we're going to discuss today, I hope. And the launch of Zafin AIOS, very similar to BIOS, but AIOS, is effectively trying to get our clients to reimagine the way they do work with AI.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So go ahead, please, Sam.
Yeah, from what you see across the banking, if you talk about
Yeah.
banking, I see a lot of launch of different products and services, but it seems to be
Mhm.
most of them are at testing stage at the moment. What do you see? What products are making into production, and what products are stuck in testing phase, and why?
Yeah, products. When you refer to products, you're referring to AI products, or you're referring
Yes,
to use
I'm
cases?
referring to AI products. Yes, because
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, listen. At the end of the day, let's use simplistic things like an IDE.
let's
Just
do.
getting technical a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
You look at Cursor as an IDE. You look at Cloud Code. I think there's a level of stuck with the adoption of those tooling sets, because what we've done is we've given humans access to tools, and the humans are using the tools. The humans are becoming more productive using these tools. They're
Okay.
building maybe a bit more, but the workflows in these organizations have not changed. So
Mm-hmm.
what we've done is we've taken a very manual operating model, an operating fabric, the way work has been done, whether it's an SDLC or whether it's an enterprise operations piece of work within a bank. And what we've done is we have kept it all the same, from all the guardrails to the workflow steps to the process to the governance. But what done is given people tools. So great, they could do things a little bit faster, but effectively we haven't re-engineered the way we work.
Okay.
And that's where you're hearing a lot of contention around the notion of overspending, that it's
Mm-hmm.
overhyped, that the
Yeah.
outcomes are not being achieved. I don't think I'm here to question the power of what these AI models can do. I've seen it firsthand personally, and I've seen it firsthand within the organization that we operate in, and with what we're doing with clients. It is here to stay. It is transformative. It is impactful, and it's a game changer. The question is, can the culture of an organization and the operating fabric of an organization fundamentally transform to adopt these capabilities in a very different way? And
All
if you
right.
haven't retooled the operating fabric, you haven't retooled the workflows and the processes of the way we work, you're effectively just accelerating individual productivity, but not the overall way of work, which means work is not a single unit. Work is across teams, across departments, across individuals.
Yeah.
That work hasn't improved.
Charbel, I see, AIOS, you launched this for what size of banks, if you could tell me in a couple of words. Is it for mid-tier,
Any size,
any
any
size?
size.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why I raised this question is that there is a narrative I see in the market. AI is going to benefit the largest banks, JPMorgan, Goldman, HSBC, because again, they have resources, they have engineers and budgets. What
Correct.
about mid-tier banks? Is AI going to widen the gap between these largest banks and smaller mid-tier banks? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a very important question. It depends on how you frame your thinking. And
Okay.
by the way, I could apply that same question to a tech company like Zafin,
All right.
right? That's not generating, $20 billion a year in revenue. Is
All right.
AI going to benefit the largest technology companies on the planet, or will it benefit companies like Zafin that's instrumental in banking? And I'll
Mm-hmm.
apply it back into banking for a second.
Yeah.
Yes, the JP Morgans and the rest will be able to spend a significant amount of budget annually. They'll be able to hire, build teams of engineers, of AI engineers, of thinkers, of creators, of doers, of builders, and they'll be able to progressively advance their objectives. Okay.
Right.
AIOS is intended to support the largest organizations in helping them get organized and how to
Okay.
structure that, but
Right.
it's also equally important to the organizations that don't have capacity or budget to go and hire hundreds of AI engineers, or they may be operating in a market that may not have the critical talent pool that they're looking for to be able to advance their ambitions of reimagining the way they work and leveraging AI across their complete end-to-end workflow. So the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of what we've built and the purpose of the way we think about it is that it levels the playing field, because it's not about how much money you have anymore,
Right.
right? AI is the game changer for every organization, irrespective of the size. So you can now start to horizontally scale the work units, even if you're a
Okay.
small company that may not have the budget, because of AI's ability to scale the way we do work. But the question is, can you, as an organization, as a leadership team, fundamentally reimagine the operating fabric of the organization? Can you redesign the culture of the organization? Can you take an approach where you're going to start with AI as a capability in the workflows versus adding it as a tool to an already slow process in your end-to-end workflow? So my argument here is, Sam, that AI is a game changer for every organization. The question is, are you ready to adopt, or are you ready to watch others adopt?
Okay. And Charbel, do I understand correctly? AIOS by Zafin is like a middle layer. Basically, what you are saying, you bring your own AI agents, you bring your own LLMs, models. We just help you to orchestrate everything, right? Do I understand correctly?
So I think that's fair. There's a bit more to it. Think of it as the control plane,
Okay.
another analogy, Sam. All these organizations are buying airplanes from different airplane manufacturers. We're the airport.
Okay.
Most organizations don't have an airport. They don't have the control plane, the control tower, the orchestration, the model routing, the cost routing, the task routing, how to onboard internal built agents, third-party agents, because this is going to be a community of agents. So we are, and then how do you measure productivity on agent? How do you give agent feedback? Where's the knowledge graph and the knowledge catalog and the corpus of knowledge? All of that is being thought out, but is not real anywhere. And then how do you avoid lock-in from one model to another? Organizational memory, which is tied back to knowledge. Do you put that memory and knowledge in a very specific model provider, or do you abstract it at the enterprise layer? So we are that control plane, that harness, that orchestrator, that proof of work for governance. Where are the guardrails? We apply workflows in AIOS. You design the workflows in AIOS that are deterministic, that allow you to create circuit breakers and guardrails, and then generate all the proof of work that effectively you need as an organization to have confidence in these autonomous workflows, but also from a regulatory perspective that you can show from the idea creation to the execution and output, the end-to-end lineage of every step in the reasoning, decisioning, and execution of that work.
Okay, that makes sense. You know why I brought up this question is that that's obvious. Most AI in banking today is built on top of third-party models, including OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google. Perhaps now you guys come in as a middle layer, basically maybe help banks to take control of things.
It's the operating fabric, Sam.
Yeah, but do you think banks are essentially renting the intelligence, and do you think this is a sustainable strategy, or are we going to see in the long term banks going to use open source models or develop their own LLMs because they do not want to be dependent on OpenAI, Anthropic, or Google?
I think it's all of the above, Sam.
Yeah,
I think it's all. I think the right way to think about this is not to worry too much about what model to choose today. Okay, with AIOS, and I'll explain to you what I mean by that.
Yes, please.
The way we think about it is, what is the agent, what is the profile, what is the identity, and what is the unit of work? Okay. And in certain cases, when you're doing ideation versus an agent doing log reviews versus an agent doing reconciliation versus an agent doing, transaction monitoring, there's going to be different agents with different profiles and different identities that require different skills, different tools, and different models. Okay? Because what you have to think about it is, at the end of the day, there's going to always be organizations like Anthropic and OpenAI and others that are spending a significant amount of money, that have significant amount of compute, that are going to build phenomenal things. Where we are today and where we're going to be in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years from now, that's going to continue to evolve and advance. So you don't want to take a philosophical point of view to say, well, I'm going to build all the models myself. Well, then now, do you have the budget to compute and build on open source, closed weighted models, open weight models? Are you going to do all of that on your own? And imagine this. Imagine if every bank was to do that. Think about the wasted capital from a shareholder value proposition perspective across the industry versus reimagining the work and only consuming the models that make sense for the work tasks. We should not be in the business of creating the robots. We should be in the business of consuming and orchestrating the robots. Coming back to the analogy of a supply chain, of a factory, if you think about Toyota and you think about many of these other organizations that advanced their manufacturing over the past 40, 50 years, they didn't go and say, we're going to be the robot manufacturers. They partnered. There was an ecosystem of providers, right? And my perspective on this is, I think most financial institutions, the vast majority, I would say 98% of financial institutions, banks, and other organizations should strongly consider using them all, but using them all in a very controlled way where you have auditability,
Mm-hmm.
transparency, and visibility to what the models tied to the agents and the profiles and the identities and the work tasks that are being executed, where we have transparency of that. And that's where the model cost orchestration becomes very important. If I have a task where I'm simply looking at logs,
Yeah.
should I be using Opus 4.8? No, you should not be, right? So
Yeah.
that's the point that we're making, that you need to use a combination, but route the right work for the right model, whether it's on-prem, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's a third party. You should have maximum optionality as an organization to be able to do one or any of the following.
As a company that's developing middle layer and orchestration layer, what do you think is going to be the most critical for banks to choose which model to use or what company to use in terms of frontier models? Because costs are very high, token costs are increasing from month to month, I would say. So how would they decide, and how are you helping in this process?
So a lot of the analytics that we built in AIOS gives the bank the ability to see the cost of the work that's being done,
Okay.
and the output and the quality and the amount of loops that's being conducted. So a lot of this also comes back to, how do you have control and visibility and transparency and insight in the work? And what we found transparently is that if you apply this model, because keep in mind, AIOS was built for us as a starting point, right? We built
Mm-hmm.
it in order, being a technology company that builds complex products globally for the highest regulated industry, we had to make sure we're building this in a very thoughtful, secure, governed way. But at the same time, we have to be thoughtful on cost structures.
Yeah.
So my perspective on this is, you don't need to pick right now. You need to consume the different models. You need to get your teams to start to practice a bit with some of the open source models, some of the on-prem. But we built a gateway. We use a gateway inside of our platform that lets you connect to any model, both, from a open source model all the way through to a closed source model. We give the bank the optionality, but it comes back to the work and the agent that's doing that work and which model they should do from a model routing perspective. I'll give you one more example. We have some pieces of work where we're building software where the agent now has the intelligence to know that I got to switch between models for this work
Okay.
task. So this work
Okay.
task has 15 steps through the workflow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For the translation of the idea, I don't need a very expensive model. For the coding, I may need a more expensive model, right? So you start to be able to efficiently drive the right work to the right model for the right output by
Mm-hmm.
optimizing the overall workflow.
Yeah. All
Does that
right.
make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And my next question would be, actually, if you could help me to understand, this is not only about banking, but in general about AI. How do you measure efficiency of AI or AI agents in general? I would say. Let me give you one number. Lloyd's Banking
Sure.
Group said in 2026 they are targeting over 100 million in value from AI. What does it mean? How do you measure that 100 million came from AI? Because I'm a
Mhm.
bit skeptical of these like headline numbers. I want to understand the methodology behind like calculating or measuring the efficiency of AI or ROI from AI. If you could explain.
Yeah, I think it's more of attribution. And I can't speak on their behalf in terms of how they measure and the mechanics and methods and models that they've built. I'm sure there's some, being a highly reputable bank
Yeah.
like they are, that they're able to, showcase how they've achieved that output or that outcome. For us, I can tell you what we're doing as an organization within AOS, which then is available to
Mm-hmm.
our clients,
Mm-hmm.
is effectively we look at work productivity. And what I mean by that is defects, as an example. You think about the
Mm-hmm.
SDLC lifecycle. Let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
supply, software development. Um, what was our cycle time before in fixing a defect? How much of that was cost, and what was the cost of that? Versus now, what is the cycle time of resolving that defect, and what were the token cost of resolving that defect? And then what was the quality of the outcome of resolving that defect? That's measurable. Okay. You can
Okay.
measure it down to a very fine grained level. I would argue we now have the ability to measure units of work and the cost of units of work in this new paradigm than we have been able to historically, based on our based on attribution, timesheets, and other dimensions of work velocity. So I would say right now with AI, if it's orchestrated and there's analytics and transparency in what you're doing from a work perspective, you
Okay.
can absolutely measure the outcomes and the benefits. And for us, there's some significant savings. I tell our clients we become the company of yes. And what the company of yes means, there isn't an enhancement that makes sense that we can't build. Whereas historically, Sam, I needed to budget that. I needed to plan that out quarters. I needed to be able to see whether I needed to hire more engineers and more capacity to execute on that. We now as a company can then use our platform, AIOS
Okay.
internally, to be able to put that into the work queue and get that work out through an autonomous fashion with humans being in the loop when the humans need to be in the loop. So I would say
Charbel,
it's absolute. Go ahead, please.
let me interrupt you here because I want
Yes,
to go into the details. I know that you used AOS internally before launching it to the public,
correct.
and you said we are able to measure efficiency that we gained from our own software. Can you give me some
That's correct.
numbers?
I can give you some numbers, right? So I'll give you one product line because we have different products for different clients.
Okay.
One product line, all of our defects, I'll give you an example, all the
Yeah.
defects that were done historically through human triage and human engagement now is done completely autonomously through the platform. Now, humans, the way we've done this is humans then go and we never put it back in the code base. Humans then have to review the outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about that, headline number, 100% of defects are now completely done through autonomous means through AIOS platform for this
Mm-hmm.
product. A couple of other examples is a significant amount of R&D. Close to 50% of our R&D is all done autonomously through the
Mm-hmm.
platform. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can start to extrapolate. What does that mean? If you're able to now have that much R&D, that means for us, it's not about human reduction. It's about growing the business, adding more use cases, adding more capabilities, adding more features, being able to build more capabilities in the marketplace that lets us grow as an organization. At the same time, it also allows us to reposition a lot of our team members to become AI engineers, right? So we are supporting the workforce to start to think about the future of work, because at the end of the day, work is changing. We started the conversation about what does this mean to work and the type of work. Our perspective is it's not about reducing people. It's about transforming to create more, to do more, and to create bigger impact, which means it allows us to grow and allows our clients to grow. So I would say from a headline perspective, there is significant value creation for us. And if you think about it from a client perspective, there's going to be significant value creation in productivity, in velocity, in outputs, in outcomes. But fundamentally, this has to be done in a very controlled, governed way, because
Mm-hmm.
this is not about vibe coding your way through outcomes. It's about being able to create trust, transparency, clarity, and also being able to do performance reviews on these agents that humans provide.
Right.
Okay.
And I will go back to the topic of employment or job security
Sure.
in banking. So what you said, basically now 50% of your R&D is done by AI. And at the same time, did this increased efficiency of your company? Now you are doing more development. It means you do
Correct.
not need to fire, let's say, those people who were doing R&D, but maybe add even more people to produce more products and increase the output, right? It means you are not firing anybody. You are instead
You need
maybe
to
even,
grow,
yeah,
Sam.
you are
Yeah.
growing. However, in this case, can you explain me this? I will again bring up some numbers. Morgan Stanley, as I
Sure.
said in the beginning, analysis to say European banks could cut 200,000 jobs by 2030, which is 10% of the sector's workforce. ABN AMRO in Europe is cutting 20% of staff by 2028. Societe Generale CEO said nothing is sacred. So if the efficiency is increasing by AI and banks can create more products and solutions, why are these banks cutting job force? Is it simply AI washing then?
I can't listen. I can't tell you what is happening in the boardroom and what the strategy is.
Right.
What I can tell you from our point of view,
Yes.
um, is that the way we think about it is you got to see this as an opportunity to really create a playing level field and be able to really step up and grow the business, drive growth in the business. Um, Driving growth in the business does not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
mean reducing the people in the business. It
Okay.
means changing the way they think about what their jobs are, helping them grow with the organization, and being able to have more thinking type roles that effectively allow you to become a lot more strategic in how and what you produce as products, services, and capabilities. So my philosophy is, and if you look at us as an organization, we're actually hiring. Like there's a significant list of people we're hiring, but we're
Okay.
also rapidly growing, right? So it just depends on how you frame the opportunity and whether it's AI washing. I can't comment on that because I just don't know the specifics. But what I
Right.
can say is it just depends the state of mind, the framing, and how you're executing on the operating model. I would say it should be looked at as an opportunity to help grow the business versus shrink the business.
Right. One of the things that you mentioned about AIOS is proof of work. So basically, you have a trail of what AI agents did, how things changed, and when we talk about banks and enterprise software, that's very important. When you say proof of work, is it about blockchain? So are you recording everything on
Yeah.
blockchain to keep the trail, or
So
how
you
does it
you're the
work?
only one, Sam, that picked up the terminology from all the
Right.
conversations I've had, and this goes back to the days that myself and our chief product and technology officer spent a lot of time on blockchain in our
Right.
past lives, and
Okay.
and the terminology has been picked up from blockchain, but there is no blockchain here.
No
And what I
blockchain.
mean by what I mean by the terminology is the notion of how a blockchain works and the notion of immutability and proof of work and transparency and visibility. Those
Mm-hmm.
principles need to be applied. Okay. And when you move towards the idea that you could have autonomous AI operating in an organization. And in AIOS and what we've built, every step of the way, there is traceability and there's proof of work being provided. I'll give you a simple example. When
Okay.
we ask the agents to go and fix a bug, the first piece of the workflow is that they have to translate and understand what the bug is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a translation agent that picks it up and it translates it in a very specific way tied to the source code. It understands the code base, and then it has to create a plan on how to reproduce the bug. So
Okay.
every step of the way, this is not about here, agent, I have a bug, give me the output. The output is
Okay.
interesting. The way you get to the output is more important. So from our perspective, give me the proof of how you're going to reproduce the bug. Once you do that and we validate you past that, that checkpoint, then go and reproduce the bug. And what that means is go and spin up an environment with a software base and prove to me that you're able to reproduce the bug. Take screenshots of reproducing the bug, record a video of yourself, agent, that you were able to reproduce the bug. Okay, that's what we have in AIOS. So it reproduces the bug, it records a video, it provides a JSON output, it provides all the details of proving that it reproduced the bug. And then we have a checker that validates, in fact, it reproduced the bug tied to the original reporter of that bug. When you achieve and you succeed that gate, then give me a plan on how you're going to fix the bug. So we don't get
Mm-hmm.
to fixing, like there's work that the workflow does that has to get us to the point where we are 100% certain the bug exists. We
Mm-hmm.
understand the bug. We know where in the code the bug exists. We've reproduced the bug. We've documented how we reproduced it. We provided evidence of the reproduction. And then we've created a plan of how to fix the bug. Then the agent picks that up and it actually goes and fixes it. Once it fixes it, show me your reasoning, your decisioning, and what you've actually executed, which tools you used, which environment, which versions. All the data is recorded in the proof of work platform.
Okay, I
Then
see.
run testing, prove it out on testing, then get it going so that a human can then do the validation and do a pull request and get it released. At the end of the day, that whole cycle is what we need in regulated industries and every industry to be able to feel comfortable that we can do an autonomous execution of work. And this is not tied just to software development. This is tied to reconciliation. This is tied to anything else that you're trying to do, any type of work. That notion of end-to-end visibility and transparency becomes super, super, super important, irrespective of model. This is not tied to the model, right? This is tied to the platform. Okay.
Right.
That's what we've done.
And I also want to touch the point of governance and regulation in general AI in banking.
Correct.
In my opinion, where we are way early in this, even governments and regulatory bodies do not know how to correctly basically manage AI or set up governance around AI in regulated environments in financial institutions. My question would be, what do you think? What's the minimum governance levels that banks need before deploying any AI? Not in a testing environment, but in a production, in your opinion?
Very simply, it's going to meet the existing governance that the human workforce has.
Okay.
You're
But
probably wondering, what does
AI,
that mean?
yeah, if you could.
Okay, so we also have to be practical and pragmatic about how we're going to adopt these things, right? So
Okay.
the first thing that we do, and this is where, AIOS, what we've done is we've created a bit of deconstruction of the overall notion of how AI is consumed and used. So the first thing that we do when we say there's an agent, what we mean by that is there's an actual agent profile that's registered in the actual organization's hierarchy, in your Active Directory, in your HR system. Okay.
Okay.
And in our cases, there's agents that are called Agent Tina at Zafin.com. They have credentials. They have MDM access. They have their own physical compute workstations. Okay.
All right.
So we treat the agent profile with the same entitlement access. So for example, if this agent is an engineering agent and there's a human engineering agent, what is their profile's credentials access? So what that basically means is that engineering agent shouldn't have necessarily production access. Actually, they should never have production access. So the agent, their profile doesn't have production access. So we follow the same entitlement process that we've orchestrated over the past 50 years in industry to make sure at the agent level, the credentials are tied to something that's already regulated and governed today. That's at the profile level, right? At the agent level.
All right.
Then within AIOS, you start to apply profiles to that. And what those profiles mean is what are the skills and what are the dimensions of skills that you're applying to that agent? What tools do they have access to? How is it controlled? How is it governed? So entitlements, identity, access, profiles, tools, all of that is governed in AIOS to give the organization the ability to control all the guardrails in every step of the way. Then we have deterministic workflows. Because as I mentioned to you, what I explained on the bug fix, there's actually a deterministic workflow with guardrails and checkpoints at every step in between. So that's the merging of deterministic capabilities with agentic capabilities in order for us to have the proof of work in every step of the way to allow the agents to continue in the overall gated checkpoint. That's the method of how work is done in an organization today. As an example, do we log a human's reasoning when they're about to do something?
All right.
Do we log their method of coding it? We don't. We don't have that today. We just assume the humans understand the objectives. We assume they can be trusted. And that is inherently part of how society's bounded contracts are with each other. From an agentic perspective, we don't trust necessarily that. And we want every event, every reasoning decision, every log, every thinking decision are documented. But then we also want agents that do the checking, that do the validation. Then we also have pushed security agents left into that workflow. So we're actually validating that it's within compliance, within the policies, within the rules. All of this is being done as checkers on top of checkers on top of checkers to make sure that we can actually get to this automated workflow.
I see.
So the principles is taking AI and just putting it into an enterprise and hoping for the best is where it all falls apart.
And look, one interesting question that I have,
Sure.
If AI makes a mistake, who's responsible at this point? I will go back to the point you raised. You said we do not log human actions because we know that you understand you are a human being. So
we assume you understand. We assume.
Yeah, we assume that you understand, that you can do the job. But in case of AI, we log everything and every bit of detail, every step. Regardless, AI can hallucinate. So in this case, if AI makes a mistake now, who is responsible? Is it like the creator of LLM? Is it the bank? Or in this case, let's say AI, in the case of AIOS, is it you guys? Who is responsible?
It's me. I'm responsible. right?
What do you
Like
mean?
for our work that we're producing, meaning
All right.
internally, if
Yeah.
I'm building an operating model and a workflow and I'm building the right guard, this is why, Sam, it's so important that you think through how you're going to do this. You put the right
Okay.
governance controls and checks in place. We
Okay.
never put anything in production without a human doing a review, ever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
we still want that review process happening. It's very
Right.
critical and very important, right? It's the last layer of trust. Now, the argument is eventually, can we get past that? All good. Let's see. Let's see where the world takes us, right? But for us operating in the industry that we operate in, we want that last check of human validation. In fact, in AIOS, the humans also give performance reviews to the agents. So you go in and
Mm-hmm.
you give performance reviews to the agents. Which agents are doing a good job? Which agents are not doing a good job? They've developed code. Is this the right way to develop the code? So we continuously give that feedback to the agents. We update our knowledge graph. We update the policies, the guardrails to make sure that we're giving specific execution objectives to these agents where we're not asking them to go and do random things. I think where the problem statement, Sam, is when we think that AI, you give it a prompt and say, fix this, and you give it something and you just let it go. Yeah, that's not the job here. That's not the objective.
No.
You gotta create the right workflows with the right deterministic steps, with the right guardrails in order to get to this type of work. At the end of the day, accountability still relies and is still dependent on that organization. But if there's a bug introduced today in our human workforce, who's accountable?
Mm-hmm. I
It's a
asking
question.
me?
I'm asking you, who's accountable?
Uh, I mean, the person, the developer.
But at the end of the day, it's the organization that's accountable, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
humans,
Yeah.
humans
Exactly.
make mistakes.
Yeah.
Humans make mistakes. Humans may not follow direction. I'm not saying this is not a counter argument to AI is better than humans. What
Yeah.
I'm just saying is, at the end of the day, you have to capture the same level of details. In fact, for humans, we have an inherent trust. For agents, it's not that I have a personal relationship with these agents. The
Yeah.
trust isn't enough. The proof is what matters. And if I could get the proof and I could validate the proof and I could test the proof, multiple iterations while we train these agents, and then I could have humans do the validation and I could see, by the way, we also allow these agents to create case studies. That case
Okay.
studies goes back into a knowledge source. Humans validate the case studies so that other agents don't need to go and figure out things on their own. So we
Mm-hmm.
are really much creating a control plan behind this, a lot of workflows. But at the end of the day, you do this right, then you're maximizing the power of use of AI in a very controlled, structured, organized way.
This is one of my last questions. What's your roadmap for AIOS? What are the new features you are planning to launch by the end of this year and the next year?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things have already been built. We're using it for ourselves. I think for us is actually producing agents that organizations could adopt. Right
All
now, it's a
right.
platform that allows us to build agents for and work with our clients. We do forward deployed units of team members because we don't just do FDEs, we do FDUs. And the reason for that is you need documentation experts, you need consultative thinking, you need engineering thinking, you need different capabilities in that FDU to help our clients onboard onto AIOS. Okay. I would say agents where, we could pre-build a set of agents that could then be quickly adapted to that organization for them to consume. Examples of that right now we're working through is vulnerabilities. So you're familiar with vulnerabilities. There's a release on a specific vulnerability with a discussion on Mythos and everything that's happening is we're creating an automated pipeline that as soon as a vulnerability hits, we know which code base is impacted. The agents pick it up, they triage it, they fix the vulnerability, they update the code, and they make it ready all within the same day. So instead of clients, and every bank has this issue, they're flooded with thousands of vulnerabilities that they're always trying to stay ahead and they're trying to triage it. And they're saying, oh, this is not as risky as this. Forget about all that. Hammer it all through, run it through the pipeline. Just make sure that you could create that pipeline that could remediate, whether it's a package vulnerability, whether it's a code-based vulnerability, we could automate all this. So that's an agent that we feel that we could put into AIOS and have our clients use that actually helps with from a regulatory posture perspective. Because one of the
Right.
biggest issues in regulation today in banking is risk and vulnerabilities. So if we could use this significant scale of AI platform capabilities, we could solve this once and for all and reduce the risk posture for a lot of these organizations. Now that's one workflow. Another one is finance reconciliation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the way you reconcile whether it's the books or whatever you're doing reconciliation, we believe we could create a marketplace of agents that banks
I
could
see.
share and use from each other, support each other, so they could actually start adopting these agents versus having to build everything from the ground up themselves.
Do you know that with particularly the second feature that you mentioned, you are going against one of the a few companies in the market? Because I personally at one point was thinking using AI in this particular vertical because I see there is a huge opportunity there. I mean, it's it's a right
For
place
us, we're not trying to
be.
compete. This would be part of it, right? We're not trying to compete with that, right? At the end of the
Right,
day, what we care about, Sam, is the workflows. We care
right,
about helping
yeah,
clients adopt this in a safe manner. We are a product company. We've
right,
adopted it. So
right,
this is not coming from a team of, and no hit to any startup. I fully support the startup community. I
sure,
think for us, it's coming from 24 years of building, of creating, of running very large, complex processes. We handle 2 billion transactions every single day across the
wow,
globe in our platform. A lot of these learnings of what we think is important and what we need to do and how to do it, what we've put into AIOS to do it for ourselves. And we thought to ourselves, you know what? Every one of our clients, every regulated enterprise, in fact, beyond banking, needs help because they're all trying to think through: do I adopt Cloud Code, Cursor, Gemini? Great, I've adopted these tools. How do I build? How do I create? Okay, do I have Gone for sales? Like, they're getting flooded, and then they got Agent Force.
yeah.
They got this, that, and everything else. For us, it's about how do we help you get organized, structured, and feel confident in the work that's being produced for the organization.
Basically, you answered my last question. I wanted to ask you, what would you recommend bank CEO when it comes to AI? How should they approach the AI with all these new technologies that are coming up every day? And you said use AIOS. That will help you to
I mean
manage
that.
everything.
I mean, not trying to sell in position. I think it's, as the CEO of Zafin, this is
Yeah,
what I wanted us to do for ourselves
yeah.
because we experienced it. We've been in this AI journey for 4+ years, well
Hmm.
before many of these things came to light. And we gave every employee. I mean, we use pretty much every AI tool. We haven't picked a partner. We use them all. We love
Hmm.
them all. We support them all.
Hmm.
6 months from now, this one's better than this one. So we'll use this and then we'll pivot to this. You need that. Don't pick a single horse, pick all the horses.
Right.
Don't pick a
I see.
single airplane, pick all the airplanes, but build the airport.
Well
The
said. Well
CEOs
said.
need the airport. Okay, that's
Right.
what I think.
Right.
We're also going to have planes flying across their enterprise hitting each other. We don't want that. We want
No, absolutely.
security. We want, clarity. We want everything else associated with that. That's the way we think about AIOS, and it's working for us. And we believe it's going to have a material impact. And by the way, if you don't use AIOS, I think
Hmm.
our point of view to these clients is that's okay. They need to step back and think about what they're going to do when it comes to all of the things we just discussed:
Okay.
control, security, governance, orchestration, workflow, cost, proof of work.
Yeah.
If they've figured all that out, please proceed. If they haven't figured that out, then that's where you're seeing a lot of the noise around hype that I've spent so much on tokens and I don't see the output.
Yeah, definitely. Charbel, thank you for coming on the show. Really
Sam,
enjoyed our
thank you.
conversation.
Appreciate it. Thank you to your viewers.